Most of us expect the Orlando Magic to be bold, to be brave, but to still be pretty conservative. Are we thinking too small? And is this the time for the Magic to strike? Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is May 30th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the media since the 2011 season, long time ago. You can follow me, of course, on Twitter at PhilipR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, I went over what I did in the Locked On mock draft yesterday, but are we thinking too small? Is this the time to push all the chips in? We'll discuss that and one writer's idea that makes some sense, but maybe impossible. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day and make it part of your day every day. We truly appreciate all those who listen whenever you listen, but our first listeners, our everyday listeners, especially appreciate all of you. Join the club. You're all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Magic Twitter, Magic social media was kind of sent a buzz yesterday by Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com on his podcast covering Cleveland Cavaliers, noted that the Cleveland Cavaliers are in a weird place. They're about to become a second apron team as Evan Mobley's extension kicks in, which is now a Supermax extension because he won Defensive Player of the Year. The Cavaliers are in a place where they don't have a lot of wiggle room. And this is a reality that is hitting every team in the league as they start to pay their players more and more. You know, one thing teams around the league are going to have to do better of is defining who max players are. There's a reason why everyone was ticked off that the Magic gave Franz Wagner a max, that Evan Mobley got a max, because now that market is set that you still have to give your rookies max contracts and all of that, what that means. Now, we've talked a lot about the first apron. The Magic are flirting with the first apron this summer. The second apron is even more restrictive. You can't aggregate salary, so you can't trade two players for one. You can't take on more money than you send out. That's a carryover from the first apron rules. You can't use any exceptions or even traded player exceptions in trades or to sign free agents. You can pretty much only sign your own free agents, sign minimums, and sign rookies. Being in the second apron is extremely onerous on top of the luxury tax payments. And if you're a repeater, the repeater tax payments that come with it. It's the reason why we all think the Boston Celtics are going to essentially break apart their team and begin to deconstruct their roster this offseason. It's why Kristaps Porzingis feels very available. Drew Holiday feels very available, while why some teams are sniffing around for Derek White. And this is one of the reasons why the Cavs kind of maybe think they might be in the market to do something big. Again, this is a big, I think this feels like the first summer that a lot of teams are really beginning to realize and understand the new rules of this collective bargaining agreement and are now acting like, oh, we've got to do something about this. And that's why it feels like there's going to be a lot of movement this offseason. There's going to be a lot of big players traded because there are teams that, if you're a second apron team, you should be competing for a championship. There are a lot of second apron teams that aren't competing for championships. Phoenix, mostly. But there's a lot of teams looking to cut payroll. The Cavaliers, I don't think should be that team. Cleveland should enter next season. You know, if you look at rosters now, yes, they lost in the second round again. Cleveland should enter next season as the favorite to be the top seed again. Like, they're still really good. But they're probably losing Ty Jerome. They've got to be really smart with what they do. And so inevitably, one of the considerations that the Cavs are going to have to make, and Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com suggested, is that they have to be at least open to moving one of their big salaries, Darius Garland or Jared Allen. And so that is one of the storylines kind of bubbling underneath the surface here. That is one of the storylines that's kind of present. And Fedor suggests that there is a framework for the Cavaliers to trade Darius Garland to the Magic for Jalen Suggs. Now, getting this math to work is really difficult. If the Magic were to complete a Darius Garland trade, and Darius Garland fits a lot of things the Magic need. He is a truer point guard. He is excellent off the dribble. He'd work really, really well with Paolo and Franz. Last year, Darius Garland averaged 20.6 points per game, 6.7 assists per game, shot 40.1% from three. He's a career 38.8% shooter. Played 70 games the first time in his career, played 75 games last season. From a basketball standpoint, Darius Garland is better than any point guard option we've discussed. And if it costs you Jalen Suggs, that's the price of getting an all-star. And we'll talk more about the Jalen Suggs situation here in a minute. You're only trading Jalen Suggs for an all-star like that. And the question then becomes, do the Magic need to think bigger? Is Anthony Simons too small? And not size small, but just, I would agree with this. Like, Anthony Simons, Colin Sexton, Kobe White, Austin Reeves, all the guys that we've talked about, they are half measures. They are compromises. They're flawed players who give the Magic something they need, don't get me wrong, but they are flawed players. And essentially what you're doing is adding a player to your already established core. You're not shaking up the core. And the reality is, we don't know if this core works. And look, I am of the belief that half measure is fine. That this is about improving the team you have and figuring out how far they can go together. We saw what they looked like together in the first round against the Cavs in 2024. Last year, everyone was hurt. We didn't get to see what this fully looks like. And so I think it is worth saying, let's see if we can grow this supporting cast around this group to make it better. Build the culture, build a better roster, build more shooting, and then see what Suggs, Franz, and Paolo can do together, because we don't know what the upside potential is. Now, there are probably a lot of people out there saying, oh, this is what it is, like Franz can't shoot, Paolo's inefficient, all that stuff. We're not at those existential questions yet. I still think those are 2 steps down the road. But that's also the problem. Maybe we do need to be thinking bigger. Maybe we do need to consider what's on the table. Now, I would say this. NBA math is really difficult these days. Unless the Magic are declining every team option they have, the Magic are right around the first apron. And first apron means you cannot take back more money than you send out. You can't gain money in a trade. For the Magic to make a Darius Garland for Jalen Suggs trade work, because Darius Garland is going to make $39.4 million next season, will be over 40 the next 2 seasons. And so that essentially means the Magic are a second apron team or well above the first apron for the next 2 years under Darius Garland. That, if you're making a Darius Garland trade, your window's open. You're winning a championship now. You're competing for a championship now. And I would look at this team and I'd say the Magic are 1 or 2, maybe 3 steps away from considering themselves to be serious title contenders. And a lot of that is just Paolo and Franz need to prove that they can elevate the team and win in a playoff series. Like, the Magic haven't won a playoff series yet. I think we're all very encouraged by what we've seen from the stars in the Magic's 2 playoff series over the last 2 years, and generally encouraged by how the team performs in the playoffs. The Magic, losing in 5 games, played better than I think a lot of us expected against the Celtics. The Magic certainly played better than any of us could have expected against the Cavs. The Magic, though, still have to win a freaking series. They haven't done the thing yet. They haven't gotten to the next round. They haven't flirted with the conference finals. The Magic are still trying to figure out if the base formula works. And so that is where the Magic are at. But you can get really good really quickly in this league. A full healthy season from Paolo, an improved season, a continued improvement from Franz, more spacing, more shooting. It's not crazy to think the Magic could be a title contender next year, or could quickly become the plucky team that everything breaks right. Do what the Pacers did last year, do what the Pacers did this year, what the Knicks did this year, and find themselves in a conference finals with a chance to win. we cannot dismiss this idea had out of hand, even if it would take jumping through a lot of hoops to make it work. Because, yeah, it's easy on the Cavs side. Suggs makes less money than Garland, not an issue. On the Magic side, again, if the Magic, decline all their team options, renege on those bird rights, which is not hard to do, they would have to gut a lot of their depth and then become an apron team to make this work. And so I would agree with this. We aren't thinking big enough. We aren't sitting here saying the Magic should go all in on a Giannis, on a Trey, on a LaMelo, on a Darius Garland. There are those options. There are those possibilities. But it doesn't feel like it's the right time. And this is the existential question bubbling under the surface. And I want to talk more about this. No matter how much Jeff Weltman wants to build slowly and develop and do all that stuff that we talk about so much, have conditions changed that require this to be the time to strike? We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Let me make sure I have that sponsor right. I do. Good. Excellent. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. That offer is valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. No matter what your go-to move is after an epic game, celebrate it the next day by ordering rings and reliving the highlights. Imagine being rewarded with free food just because someone went off for 50. And with Dash Pass, you get $0 delivery fees and exclusive perks like this one. How much would you save over a season? So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus or more in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms do apply. Bubbling underneath the surface of all this is opportunity. And it's not merely opportunity for the Magic. The Magic are a quasi-established team. Like, everyone recognizes they're a playoff team now. Everyone recognizes, even if they don't particularly like either player, that Paolo and Franz are legitimate options, are legitimate all-star threats. This is a team that everyone kind of, even if they don't believe they have title contention aspirations or aren't there yet, everyone recognizes, no, the Magic are a good team. They're a playoff team. They got some flaws. They got some things to figure out, but they're young. They got time. The reality, though, is windows in this league open very, very quickly. And especially with the way the CBA is now. And especially just looking around the league, the things we're talking about. Boston selling off parts. Cleveland selling off parts. Milwaukee potentially selling off parts. All these teams that have spent so much, everything just feels up in the air around the league. It just feels like this summer is a big turning point. Shams Charania of ESPN has not been the only one to say this, but everybody's expecting a very busy and active offseason around the league. Not only are there just a lot of stars who seem like they are in play, everybody feels like they're trying to reset themselves. And then you add to it that there is this opportunity in the East. Not only are the Boston Celtics, the 2 seed, the defending champions this year. They feel like they're going to take a step back. Now, Boston, to their credit, I don't think we should completely count Boston out, but being without Jason Tatum is a major loss, and they're probably going to lose another one of their veterans. It's hard to believe that they'll be the 2 seed again. Now, they could. I'm not going to completely throw them under the bus, but it's going to be a year of change for the Celtics. The Milwaukee Bucks, no longer considered a heavy favorite in the East, but they could trade Giannis this summer. They'll be without Damian Lillard for the entire year. They're kind of a middle-of-the-pack team. Indiana is expected to be aggressive. They've got, they'll pay the tax for the first time in a long time. New York, maybe they split off some parts to save some money, but they're not going anywhere. And then you have up-and-coming teams like Orlando and Detroit. You have Miami, which is always in play for a big player, and they'll make the sacrifices, it seems, to grab a big player and stay relevant. The question you have to ask if you're the Orlando Magic is this the opportunity? Is this the window, an early window with Paolo still on his rookie deal, by the way, to go make a push and try and do something? Honestly, this was the biggest lost opportunity of the season. And it was, look, it's no one's fault. It's injuries. But the Magic being unable to take advantage of the East this year, of a little bit weakened East this year, and get to the next round and say, okay, this is what we really need, having to instead spend this season trying to piece together a roster and hold this thing together before it bursts at the seams. The Magic know they have to strike. The Magic know they have to improve and have to get better at offense and scoring and shooting and all that stuff. They have to add a good offensive player. But now you look at this East landscape, and if Cleveland's going to trade one of their main guys, if Boston is falling apart, if Milwaukee's falling apart, is this the window to strike? Is this your best chance to sneak into a finals, to establish yourself as that team, to set yourself up long-term as this is the team we're going to be? And yeah, there might be tweaks. We might have to deal with some apron issues here soon, but this is our team. Good luck to the rest of the conference. The throne is empty. No offense to the Pacers or Knicks. The throne is empty right now. We don't, honestly, we don't know who the best team in the Eastern Conference is going to be next year. Cleveland is a safe assumption, but what are they going to do? Is Indiana, even in this playoff run, has shown enough inconsistency to make you think, is this just a bit of circumstance, a bit of hot play? The way they played last night in game 5, that's not what a championship team does. Now, that they may win game 6, they may make it to the next round, but that's not what a championship team does. Oklahoma City took care of their business. And I know they had a home court advantage and all that stuff, but when you take a game off the Thunder, it's shocking. When you take a game off the Pacers right now, it's like, okay, Indiana's tough. They're given more credit. They win. They find ways to win games. That's important. But nobody's scared of them. Nobody's scared of New York. And again, I'm not saying this to be offensive. I'm just saying this is opportunity. No one considered them title contenders before the year for a reason. And everyone's still shocked they made it this far for a reason. Now, they earned it. I'm not taking that away from them. But Oklahoma City is heavy favorites to win the title. And honestly, I think they're against either team, they'll win in 5. If not a clean sweep. Oklahoma City is really good. But you got to get there first. And if I'm the Magic, this is part of my consideration. This is part of what I'm thinking about as I look at this offseason. The opportunity is there for us to take a big step. The door is open. It's a freaking Money in the Bank ladder match right now. And it's whoever gets to the top of that ladder and grabs the briefcase, if you know what a Money in the Bank ladder match is. It is a huge challenge. It is a big deal. And again, I don't think it will take very much for the Magic to become contenders in the Eastern Conference, to become serious conference title, conference championship contenders. And this is why you have to consider striking now. This is why you have to consider putting some skin in the game, putting some assets in to build your team that's going to be your perennial title contender. This is why this summer is so critical and not one that you can sit out or get wrong because of all those apron concerns. You're building the team you're going to be for the next 3 years this summer. And there'll be tweaks, like there'll be little things like, yeah, you could trade a Wendell Carter, you could trade a Cole Anthony, you could trade a Goga Batadze, you could move some pieces around. It's easy to move the side pieces around. But you're locking in, you've already locked in your top 3 players. You're grabbing a 4th player that's going to boost your team and make them even better. And the hope is, and the belief has to be, that doing that this summer not only gets you out of the first round, but establishes you as a perennial contender. And frankly, if the Magic are looking at a move and not seeing that vision, then it's not the right move. It is the time to strike big. Maybe the Magic aren't pushing all their chips in. Maybe the Magic aren't expending all of their assets. But this is the time. The Eastern Conference is wide open. Everybody has questions. Nobody knows who the top team is. And everybody around the conference knows it. The Sixers could be back. They're going to get the number 3 pick. They're going to get Dylan Harper probably. They're chopping Paul George. They'll get Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe. The Heat are always in contention. And the Locked On Mock Draft, they got Durant. Things are going to happen. The Magic don't have to keep up with the Joneses. They need to run their own race. But they need to have an eye on everyone else around them and understand that everybody senses this opportunity. And if you sit down and let it pass by, you're going to get lapped. You're going to miss the window. The championship window for the Magic as a roster may not be open, but the opportunity to win a championship, to win the conference is open. And the Magic have to realize that and act accordingly. And that leads us to the inevitable question that everyone seems to understand, but nobody seems ready to talk about. So let's talk about it for a few minutes. It's the Jalen Suggs conundrum. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. There's been a lot of comparisons between the Orlando Magic and the Boston Celtics. And a lot of it is just born out of Paolo and Franz are wing creators. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are wing creators. They're kind of building a very similar team. The comparisons never ended there, though. Jalen Suggs has always been compared to Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart was the heart and soul of that Celtics team, a flawed player, but gave them an energy and a spirit that elevated them to a new level. To be sure, even though the Magic still finished second in defensive rating this season, Jalen Suggs is the kind of player that gives the Magic spirit. He gives them fight. He is the one that gives them a little bit of an edge. And frankly, even though the Magic finished the season strong and still had all these good numbers, losing both Suggs and Mo Wagner, really damaged this team's edge and their physicality. And that's why, even though the defensive numbers were still good, it sometimes felt like the defense was inconsistent. I am still, Jalen Suggs is still really important. And I would say this, I even though a Darius Garland trade might make a little bit of sense, I don't think the Magic are interested in trading Jalen Suggs quite yet. I don't think the Magic want to move him. I think the Magic want to add to their core, not change their core. But this is where the parallel continues. The Celtics ultimately decided that Marcus Smart was the player who was holding them back. They traded him to Memphis and got Kristaps Porzingis in that deal. Eventually, they also got Drew Holiday, which is really what put them over the top for a championship. But they understood that Marcus Smart was a big salary piece that they needed to get that last piece that they needed. And I don't think we're at this step yet. So I'm not going to advocate for trading Jalen Suggs. I don't think the Magic should entertain a Jalen Suggs for Darius Garland trade. I think they should investigate it. I think they should look at it. They should game it out. They should understand what the financial consequences of it are. But I don't think they're going to do that. Just knowing Jeff and knowing how he operates, that is not something they're looking to do. They want to see what Jalen Suggs looks like with this core, especially if they add another shooter or creator and let Jalen be this ultimate 3-and-D weapon. But at the end of the day, Jalen Suggs is also a $33 million player now. And it's front-loaded, obviously, so it decreases over the life of the contract. Jalen Suggs is a $30 million contract now. And that is not something that, you throw away. And ultimately, if the Magic struggle to get out of the first round, if the Magic hit a wall in the second round and can't break through, if they get to the conference finals and lose, if they get to the finals and they see, okay, this formula works to a point, how do we tweak and make this even better? Yes, Jalen Suggs is the core piece that gets moved. He is only the core piece that gets moved, though, for that last piece. And that's why, look, the Darius Garland idea is not going to go away. In fact, I would argue this about that Darius Garland idea. This summer is not the summer to do it. It's next summer, the summer after. When Garland is a $40 million player, Jalen Suggs is a little bit less. That's when it becomes perhaps a little easier to do. The Magic, will be flirting with the first apron again, or flirting with the first apron this year. They're probably a first apron team next year because of Paolo's extension, which again, if he makes all NBA, he gets paid $51 million a year. Be prepared to wrap your head around that number. It's 42 or 43. If he doesn't make all NBA, it's 51 if he does. This is just the reality, folks. Like, this is it. I'm not making a value judgment or saying anything. This is what they're allowed to make. This is what they're making. But the salary cap increases faster than player salaries can. A player salary can rise by a maximum of 8% year over year. The salary cap is going to increase by 10% for the next 5-6 years as the league catches up to its new TV deal. So it might be, I would have to game this out a little bit, but it might be easier to make that Garland trade in 2 years than it is today. That's all I'm saying. And like I said yesterday, what I found in the Locked On mock draft is that Orlando does have options. And so I'll say this again. Orlando has this tool in their back pocket. They have, Jalen Suggs is not going anywhere. When he's healthy, everyone knows how good he is. And look, he's coming off a knee surgery. He's got to prove himself and prove that he's healthy again. But he's not had the same injury. It's not been a recurring issue with him. And until it's a recurring issue, I'm not going to label a player injury prone. Like, he's had injury issues, but they've been different injuries. And so, again, it's just learning the right times to impose and inject yourself to do the things that Jalen Suggs does and just avoiding some bad injury luck. Injury is kind of luck at the end of the day. There are things Suggs I think definitely can do, but we'll get to that later. Jalen Suggs' future is set with this team. The path that he is going to go down is set with this team. He's either going to become the clear-cut third option, the guy that boosts everything this team does on both ends of the floor, or eventually the Magic are going to hit a point where they're like, we've hit our ceiling with this team, with this core. We need to see if we can reconfigure it somehow, if we can upgrade it somehow. And that upgrade is undoubtedly a Jalen Suggs trade. Now, again, I don't think it's this year. I think it's several years down the road. I don't think we're at that point yet. But very, very clearly, Jalen Suggs has value. Very, very clearly, Jalen Suggs is a big contract you can move. Very, very clearly, if the Magic are hitting some financial problems and they can find an upgrade, Jalen Suggs is the guy that you can move to get it. That's the reality of the situation. That's the reality of gaming this out year over year over year. That's just how it is. And that's how other teams are going to view the Magic. But obviously, there is still a lot of work to do. Obviously, there is still things to learn and discover before we get to that point. And so while the Magic should be thinking big, while the Magic should be doing more, they also need to stay with their core and see what it can do. It is a big summer. I don't need to tell you that. It is going to be an active summer for the Magic. and we'll see what they ultimately come up with. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, and you can also check us out on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. We just cleared 4,000 subscribers. Very, very much, very, very supportive of that. Let's get to 5,000 before the start of the next season. Tell your friends. You can, for the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter there at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, make the Locked On NBA Big Board Show your second listen today. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will get to some more draft stuff next week. Maybe I'll try and get Rafael on to talk a little bit about where the Magic are drafting and who to look for, what to look for. We'll do some more draft stuff. We kind of skipped draft stuff this week. We're not forgetting the draft. It's still there. It's still important. We'll get to that next week. But until then, have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of May. June is nigh. We'll see you all then for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. Thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic.